What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the bar. Dan here with another video, and before we get started today, big thanks to everyone who helped make Kaiju No.8 part of my channel. The reception to the new video was overwhelming, and to be quite honest, I didn't think I had so many kaiju heads as subs. So with this video, it's official. Kaiju No.8 has joined the channel. And today we're going to play some catch up and recap what's occurred in the past 7 chapters, ending with Chapter 8. And that way we'll kick it off with weekly reviews starting with Chapter 9. Now let's get out of the rain and go get our drink on. Alright, so let's recap what's happened so far. Actually, for this one, I think I'll step in front of the camera. That's right, I got a mascot! Meet your bartender here at Dan Exclaims. Be sure to holler at me on Twitter to say what you think. I might be holding a fan art / quirk contest in the near future for a copy of Ghost of Tsushima or the new Avengers game if it doesn't suck. Either way, big shout out to Fee Animation for making my idea into an actual character. I can't believe I have a character to voice. It's pretty awesome. But yeah, alright, let's just get into it. So this is the short abridged version of chapters 2 through 8. So a 3-month time skip has occurred since the hospital breakout at the end of Chapter 1 into Chapter 2. Since then, Kafka has adjusted to being more or less a kaiju. He's able to switch back and forth at will and actually has pretty good control over transforming specific parts of his body, not to give himself away. I mean, sometimes he does get a little too relaxed and then casually eats all kaiju'd out, but the one thing that we have to stress is that his friendship with Reno has significantly grown in the 3 months since Kafka became a kaiju, and Reno has officially dubbed Kafka his rival after they both passed the written part of the exam. One thing I want to point out is, despite everything going on, between Kafka becoming a friggin' kaiju, him trying to reunite with a lost love, is him wanting to be a good role model for the younger generation, especially Reno. In the second chapter, which takes place literally immediately after he becomes a kaiju, we saw a moment where a little girl puts the fear aside of seeing a kaiju and actually thanks Mr. Kaiju for saving her and her mom. This incident reinvigorates Kafka beyond his initial claims, and it causes him to remember the true reasons behind joining the Defense Force. So in Chapter 3, 2 major points occur. 1, Kafka finds out that he passed the exam, and 2, he meets Kikoru Shinomiya. Their meeting begins with her demanding the two move her company car as they parked in the spot 55, and today 5 happens to be her lucky number. When the two men refuse, she reveals that she's wearing a specialized, private Defense Force suit, and she lifts the car with ease, taunting Kafka for being an old man. In return, Kafka snaps back saying he isn't an old man and he's only 32, and hey, look, if you think 32 is old, I'm gonna have some beef with you in a few years. But in retaliation, he lifts the car up with zero effort, drawing the ire of Kikoru and Reno. The latter is pissed off because, he's trying to get Kafka not to, be so reckless with revealing his kaiju abilities, but he's doing it anyway. So they all enter the facilities and the physical exam begins. Kafka places 219 out of 225. And he kind of says that, it just wouldn't be fair if he used his superpowers during the exam. But then immediately afterwards, he says that he just wanted to sound cool and he totally should have just blown away the competition. This is something I really love about Kafka. He's hilarious in the moment. He's hilarious in hindsight. But the kind of thing that he's doing right now is he's deflecting with humor. It's his coping mechanism. But back to the story. Reno then assures him that despite ranking so low, it's kind of okay considering who they're up against. We got Haruichi Izumo, the valedictorian of Tokyo Neutralization University, then Haru Furuhashi, the so-called powerhouse valedictorian of Hachioji Neutralization Technical College, and Aoi Kaguragi, who honestly, let's be real here, probably would have gotten in without the exam, and those are just the top 3 recruits excluding the badass Kikoru. And after finding out the truth about Kikoru being such, an esteemed person, Kafka bugs out at her comically. It turns out that he picked a fight with arguably the best recruit, and in typical fashion, he kinda slumps about it. Reno, like the dependable dude that we know he is, picks up Kafka immediately and lets him know the little known fact about the entrance exam that gives Kafka an edge. For the past 2 years, the second part of the physical exam has been kaiju disposal. That's why Reno chose to work part-time with the disposal unit. When they reach this phase, they're given weird self-defense force suits that draw out latent power. The powerhouse students all draw out about 10%, and Reno draws out an average 8%, while Shinomiya draws out a whopping 43%, which is on par with the squad leader. While Kafka, on the other hand, he draws out 0%, because his body is already a literal kaiju. The exam begins, and another hilarious interaction between Reno and Kafka occur when the lead proctor says that the final part of the exam is indeed disposal, but the extermination kind of disposal. So within the test area, they're going to be tasked with clearing out 36 Hanju and Yoju, which are lesser threat kaiju that have been captured. Think about the Demon Slayer entrance exam when they're in the forest. As they all trudge to the starting point, the lead proctor laughs at Kafka for being the only person that's struggling to move, being that, he can't draw out any of the suit's latent power. Kafka, being quick-witted and probably one of the funniest protagonists to ever grace manga, makes a joke about the suit. He looks at Reno and tells him that us who truly know of Zero really know the struggle. Where Reno snaps back and goes, dude, stop trying to make it sound cool. It's actually pretty pathetic. All that aside, the second and final part begins. Kafka takes a real hard look at the situation, noticing that drones following around the examinees is kind of weird. If they were just going to keep a tally on eliminations, why not just mark the kaiju? Kafka and Reno realize together that part of this exam isn't just blowing away kaiju, it's seeing how you'll work as a team and assess problems and adapt to them. The self-defense force doesn't want or need people that won't work together. Yeah, you can train one of these prodigy kids to smack around a kaiju, but if a leader emerges from this, the proctors did a great job and the defense force has a new squad leader. Kafka then becomes the ultimate support. He helps one of the prodigies kill the Yoju because he remembers that he himself did a disposal job of this particular type of kaiju. He knows that it's weak to stun grenades because of its sensitive hearing, so he throws one of the stun grenades and instructs one of the powerhouse students to shoot the Yoju in its belly, its weak spot. When Kafka does this, he actually attracts the attention of the proctor, who notices that Kafka is analyzing the situation. But before Kafka can even revel in his accomplishments, another Yoju attacks and crushes him. Now, we don't know much about his durability right now, but Kafka got pretty hurt, enough that they were ready to trigger the shield and pull him out of the exam because of his vitals. That's when Kikoru shows up to taunt Kafka and disposes of the kaiju that had crippled Kafka. Kafka then demands the proctor not to pull him out of the exam. This is the last chance that Kafka has, and he'll be damned if anyone stops him. He looks at Ichikawa and tells Reno, go on without him. But that's not Reno's style. We know that by now. We know from this young man that Reno is not going to turn his back on a friend or somebody in need. So what's he do? He holds out his hand once again to Kafka. Also, this makes me think, there isn't much more time to the exam. Has Reno kind of come to terms that he probably hasn't done enough to warrant being passed, and he knows Kafka has done enough to attract the attention of the proctors, and in turn is using his time to help a friend? Fucking noble as hell. I love this kid, but with that, they do some hilarious Captain Planet homage with Reno putting Kafka on his shoulders and Kafka shouting out, by our powers combined, and they take off after Kikoru. The thing is, Kikoru is on a rampage of epic proportions. She's ripping through Yoju after Yoju, and now she's getting ready to kill the last Hanju. Because of her though, there's been no casualties, and every single participant has made it to the end of the exam solely because of her. She executes the final kaiju and the exam is declared over. Kafka and Reno fall over, realizing, shit, it's over. We get one more comical moment by Kafka before the shit hits the fan. A humanoid kaiju appears in front of Kikoru and punctures a hole right in her chest. From there, the kaiju in front of Reno and Kafka begin coming back to life because of this kaiju capable of communication. And before the humanoid kaiju leaves, he kneecaps Kikoru and bestows power upon the Hanju that, according to the reading, is going to now require an entire squad or the individual proctors to eliminate it. That's pretty terrifying, but maybe in the future Kafka might, help people control kaiju down the line. Though hearing that people need to evacuate, we see the face of Kafka. We know our hero by now. Kafka does not run away from danger, especially now. We flash back to Kikoru and she's binding her wounds using her control over the suit. As she continues to bleed out, she reminisces about her childhood and how her father, the commander of the defense force, expects perfection of her constantly. There's no acknowledgement of her accolades. It's, you're a Shinomiya, if you weren't great, you'd be trash. The kaiju then smacks the poor girl around and then she drops her weapon, declaring herself imperfect and just accepts death. Enter our hero. Kafka appears in front of his juniors, stating with a big ol' smile that she did a fine job. And wide-eyed, she wonders why Kafka, the man that refused to show his true strength, is even here. He stands up to confront the kaiju, and as she stares at the back of her hero, he tells her, because of her, everyone is evacuated. But now it's time for Kafka to take the stage. And with that, Kafka evolves into his form of the strongest kaiju ever recorded, the legendary Daikaiju, Kaiju No. 8. Now, back at the evacuation, Reno was caught up in a hurry, and after finding out that Kikoru was left behind, he starts to panic because he realizes Kafka isn't here. He doubts himself, but then he immediately shakes his head, realizing that without a doubt, without a second thought, Kafka would risk death if it meant saving someone else's life. The story then moves back to Kafka breaking his coolness by pleading with Kikoru not to tell anybody about his transformation when the Hanju fires off a blast, and then we just get this face from Kafka where he just goes still and just smacks away the blast like it's nothing. He looks at the girl and tells her, look, he's going to explain everything later, but for now, sit back and relax. Kafka then begins to charge up and we see the veins start glowing, and everyone's meters back at home base start going apeshit. The defense force starts freaking out. They're like, what the hell is going on? Why is a fortitude ranking of 9.8 showing? This means that it's confirmed the greatest kaiju ever to exist is Kafka. Him and the kaiju go punch for punch, and put it this way, never match punches with Kafka, because first skin, then muscles, then bones explode for this kaiju, as Kikoru looks on in bewilderment. Her inner monologue is stunned. She could never beat this man. Even if she was in perfect condition, there's no chance. Suddenly, a Yoju appears to kill Kikoru and finish the job, and in one punch, Kafka obliterates it, holding the young lady in his arms. His face then transforms back to his normal look, and he looks at Kikoru with a big old smile and says that she seems okay, and she's glad she's safe. But he has to impart some knowledge to the younger generation. He looks at her and says, look, you gotta take care of yourself first, saying that you are a priority. You have to get out of there yourself. Chapter 8 ends with Reno appearing and telling Kafka that he's an idiot for revealing himself once again. Kikoru passes out from exhaustion and being blown away by Kafka, and finally, the Proctors arrive. So yeah, that pretty much kind of sums up what's happened in chapters 2 through 8, and honestly I'd still suggest you read the entire story, because my chapter reviews aren't still necessarily panel to panel, and this video is a bit of like an umbrella type of video. Without reading the story, a lot of nuance and short lines of dialogue that I really can't portray are missed, and those little lines are kind of what make the story. Kafka consistently balances funny and badass, and Reno is surprisingly just fun to root for. I mean, the exam is pretty much over, and for all intents and purposes, the drones really didn't see Reno be intuitive or a force to be reckoned with, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Reno doesn't make it. Granted, he's at ground zero when the Proctors arrive and could get in sheerly on the merits of Kafka, and to be quite honest, let's be real here, Kikoru probably isn't gonna snitch on him either, so it'll be pretty fun to see what happens. All in all, I'm enjoying Kaiju No. 8, and I'll definitely be doing weekly reviews, so make sure you sit tight for Chapter 9. And be sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to see all of my up-to-date videos about Kaiju No. 8. Other than that, this is Dan, signing off. Cheers.